All right, welcome, folks. This is Chris Langell with Advisor Evolved and the Digital Advisor Podcast. This is episode 3, and I'm super stoked to have on the line with us a guy who I look up to and secretly stalk a lot of his content because he really knows what he's talking about. This is a guy that I've known for a little while now and kind of cross paths online. Barry Moore is our guest today. Barry is the creator of the Active Marketer podcast, as well as the website, theactivemarketer.com. And Barry, I wanted to get Barry on the line here with us, episode 3, because today we are talking about automation and how that applies to the insurance space. And Barry is very well versed in that area and just brings a wealth of knowledge. And he's just a cool ass guy that I like to talk to sometimes. So Barry, thank you so much, man, for being here and taking the time. You're actually in Australia. This is a cool thing about this, folks. Barry's in Australia, so very cool. Thanks for being on the line with us, man.
Great to be here, Chris. Thanks for having me, man. And yeah, isn't it great? You can just flip open your computer, talk to anybody anywhere, man.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And you get more credit here because you're actually up at like 6 a.m. It's like 3 o'clock my time. So
grinding it out, brother. Grinding it out.
That's right, man. Full cup of coffee and you're good. But so I kind of wanted to lead in. You know, I'm in the insurance space. My company, Advisor Evolved, does websites and marketing consulting. I consult with a lot of insurance agents. And, you know, there's kind of a joke that goes around in our industry that, you know, the insurance industry is usually 10 years late to the party when it comes to, you know, technology and adopting new technology and tools and things like that. And one of the things that I really believe in, you know, thanks to you and some other folks out there that I've kind of been digging a lot deeper into, is the concept of marketing automation and email automation. And I wanted to get you on here to talk about this because I think I think the way that, you know, the modern consumer is starting to, you know, purchase their purchasing patterns, you know, the old school ways of, you know, how insurance sales used to go, kissing babies and knocking on doors and direct mail. And some of the old fashioned ways are sort of falling out of favor. You know, there's a lot of millennials that are coming into, you know, the workforce. And I think the statistic is like by the year 2020, half of our spending power is going to be millennial buyers. So the way that we approach, you know, prospects and consumers and customers is obviously changing. And my goal is to help insurance agency owners and financial advisors, anybody that is, you know, kind of maybe a little bit behind the times, how they're selling to people, kind of get them acclimated to marketing automation. So, you know, I know in my head why we should automate, but I know it's a very basic question for somebody on your level of this, but I wanted to kind of get your definition and to get your reasoning behind why is it important to automate. You know, what are some of the things that I guess a small business such as an insurance agency owner, like what's in it for them, I guess?
Well, I might illustrate that with a bit of a story. So, Chris, can you make a hamburger?
I can. Yeah.
Can you make a good hamburger?
I think I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Better than McDonald's?
I don't know, man. I think I make a pretty damn good hamburger, but I'm not sure. I guess that's up to my the person that I cook it for, right?
Well, I think pretty much everybody I've run into can make a better hamburger than you would get at McDonald's, right? So then why aren't you a millionaire, right? You're not a hamburger mogul millionaire because you don't have the scale and the automation that McDonald's has, right? If you go in there and you look in the back kitchen, there's a conveyor belt of automation going on so that they can flip out hundreds of burgers every day, right? Doesn't mean it's a better product, but that automation lets them scale to a bigger level than you and I could do in our kitchen, right? Even though we make a better product in our kitchen. So automation lets you amplify a process that you have. So like you said, insurance is pretty old school, but automation would let you add a layer of scale on top of that old school. So I would say, like, you could take all the same things you're doing now to generate leads. How do you do all that in an online version where you don't physically have to be there to make it happen, right?
Sure.
So most business owners probably complain about a number of things, but one of them is always that they don't have enough time, right? I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to follow up this customer or whatever. Automation allows you to build those sequences or build those follow-ups into your business. So they're happening whether you are there or not. Now, there's obviously going to be a point where it drops out to a customer and there needs to be an interaction, especially with insurance. There needs to be an interaction back and forth between you and the customer. But automation can highlight all the things and run all the things that happen up until that point. And then you can even get the system to alert you. It says, hey, we're coming pretty close to, Chris has looked at our website 3 times and they've downloaded this, policy document. They've opened this email. So it might be time to reach out to Chris. So I would never know that otherwise if the automation wasn't in place. So it allows you to amplify and scale your processes up. We have 3 pillars at the Active Marketer: design, automate, and scale. So you would design those business processes that you may have already or put new ones into your business, automate them. And then once they're automated, you can scale them up. So instead of being able to talk to 3 customers a day, imagine if you could be able to talk to 30, right? That's what automation will do for you.
No doubt. So I love that. So design, automate, scale, and scaling obviously is a big deal because we talk about the time element, and that is a big deal in the insurance space where a lot of these businesses are being run by a team of 2, 3, 4, 5, traditionally smaller teams of people. There are agencies that are much bigger than that, obviously, but it's one of those things where a lot of the people inside of these agencies are, they're the chief cook and bottle washer. They're doing a little bit of everything, and it's very difficult to get everything done. I mean, I can tell you firsthand, I've run an agency for 10 years now, and it's very difficult to, it's impossible to scale anything. And one of the things that I tell people all the time when I talk to them, and you would probably echo the same thing, is that, when you're in the business of selling something, really you're not, the transaction of the sale comes after the marketing. So really, what I tell agents is, you're really not in the business of selling insurance. You're in the business of marketing. Whoever can market the best and whoever can scale their marketing efforts is going to capture more, attention, and they're going to write more business. So I love the scale part of this is really kind of why I wanted to talk about this with you, because that's really where the power of, in my mind, that's where the power of automation is. And you can be a team of 2, and to the outside person, it looks like you're a team of maybe 30,
Exactly. For sure.
So, one of the things that, you talk a lot about, and a product or service that you talk a lot about and that you use, and on the Active Marketer podcast, I hear you talk a lot about, is Active Campaign. And I personally like Active Campaign. I know there's a lot of different tools out there. I don't know that there's really a right or wrong tool. I guess it just depends on the agency or the business owner. But what is it, I guess, that got you hooked on Active Campaign? Why do you prefer that tool to maybe some of the other ones that are out there?
Yeah, and I'll just say this: you're exactly right with that statement that there is no right tool. The analogy I always use is if you walk into a hardware store and you say, "Hey, what's the best tool in here?" They're going to look at you a bit funny. They're going to, I don't know, what are you trying to build, man?
Right.
So, which is a better tool, a hammer or a screwdriver, right? Well, I don't know. Are you trying to drive in a nail or tighten a screw? So, there is no right tool. Like, if anyone tells you this is the best tool, that means what they really mean is either they're selling it, number one, or number two, they mean that's the best tool for them in their circumstances, which doesn't mean it's the best tool for you in your circumstances, right? So I'll just get that out of the way first. But the reason I like Active Campaign is it's a good combination of easy to use and good value to get started. If you look at other systems in this space, like Infusionsoft, Entreport, for example, there's usually a big setup cost of a few $1,000, and then it's like $300 or $400 a month. So you need a certain number of volume to justify that in the beginning, right? Active Campaign, you can get in, $20 a month, $40 a month, $50 a month. Once you scale up to like 10,000 people in your database, the prices become kind of the same. But I would argue once you got 10,000 people in your database, you should be monetizing those people pretty well enough that it doesn't make any difference anyway, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
the other thing is, the best tool is the one you're going to use.
Right.
So if you buy one of these complex systems, like I hear a lot of people come to us to migrate off Infusionsoft to ActiveCampaign, and I always ask them, oh, why do you think you need to do that? And why not just stay with Infusionsoft? And they're always like, well, it's too hard and I never use it, right? So if you're never going to use it, then there's no point in having it at all. So ActiveCampaign is much, I think, in my opinion, is much friendlier and much easier to use from a general consumer level type of person, right? If you're not going to have a dedicated staff member in there building out your campaigns and stuff, then I think it's much easier to use. If you do have a dedicated staff member, then it doesn't really matter because they just have to do what you tell them to anyway. So
Sure.
I think it's a good combination of ease of use, powerful, and affordable. That's the best way to sum it up.
No doubt, man. So, and this is something sort of that I preach or talk to about insurance agents, and no matter what you're selling, right? There's a physical sales funnel and there's a digital sales funnel, and for so long in the insurance space, really it's been all physical funnels, direct mail, networking events, those types of things. And not that there's anything wrong with that. There certainly is it. And some of that stuff still does have its place as we sit here today. But when you're talking about the digital funnel, there really, there's a front end to that funnel, which is going to be, lead capture, traffic generation, those types of things to actually get people into the funnel. And then there's the back end, which is the actual, execution of that data, and that's kind of where an active tool like ActiveCampaign would come into play, or any other kind of automation tool that you might want to use. It is to kind of nurture that person through that funnel. Is that how you would explain that to somebody?
Yeah, you hear a lot of stuff online. Everyone talks about how do you get people onto your email list? How do you get more people, funnel, social media to drive traffic to your website? Nobody ever seems to talk about what happens after that. Like what happens after you get their email address. There's a whole lot of noise about what happens up until that point, but there's not a lot of noise about what happens after that point. So the marketing automation stuff is all about what happens after that point. So yeah, so if you want to, I always try and tie it back to the physical world, or for physical businesses like this. So let's say, you mentioned networking events. Let's say you meet somebody at a networking event. Traditionally, you're probably going to swap business cards or something. Take that business card back with you the next day to the office. What happens then, right? So
right.
either it's going to sit on the desk or go into a drawer, and you're never going to follow up, or there's going to be some sort of process to follow up there, where you make a time to call them or whatever. So everyone's going to have a process, whether they realize it or not, and whether it's defined or not. There's always a process to generate an outcome. Otherwise, you wouldn't generate an outcome. So we design that process, basically, that follow-up process that happens, the offline equivalent of that online follow-up process, right? So, and what most people are doing online when they get an email address, that's kind of the hardest point, is to get it. But once they got it, it's the online equivalent of it going into the drawer. You've got all those business cards in that networking event, and you've just thrown them on top of the desk, and you never follow up, right? So that's typically what everybody does with these email addresses. They don't provide any value. They don't follow up. They don't do anything. They don't track it to an outcome. And you can do all that kind of stuff with the marketing automation platforms.
Definitely. So it's funny actually that you say that, because when I first got hip to like the email marketing game, this is probably, I don't even know, 5 or 6 years ago, when I first started to really sink my teeth into it. I got a free MailChimp account and put some forms on my site. My site wasn't getting a lot of traffic at that time. And I remember I had a couple people opt in, and I was so excited. I was like, I have like 3 or 4 people on my MailChimp list. I have no idea who they are, and I don't know that I ever even sent one email to them. I just had no game plan really at all. And it's so true that, we have so many people that, they come to us from another website vendor, and they're like, we're not getting really any, traffic, and we're not getting any leads. So, we kind of do an audit of their entire situation. Are they doing any kind of paid ads? Is it all just organic stuff? Are you blogging? Do you have any kind of mechanism on your site to follow up with visitors and kind of leave that little bread trail? But it is so true in any kind of sales business or, sales environment that, it's not necessarily, the end goal isn't necessarily to get the customer. I mean, the lead. It's what you do when you actually get it. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. And that's where automation can actually make somebody who might be bad at follow-up, look a whole lot better than what they really are. It's almost like an introvert's best friend, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's like if you get the machine to do the follow-up and you don't have to, right? But I just want to go back to that point. It's such a common story, right? I talk to so many people. All right, how many people do you have on your list? Oh, we've got X, 1,000, let's say. We've got 1,000 people on our list. When's the last time you've emailed them? I don't know. We've never emailed them. It's like, well, why did you bother gathering? Why did you bother gathering it in the first place, right? Number one. And number two, then the second reason I'm like, well, why haven't you emailed them? Oh, we're afraid they'll unsubscribe, right? If we send an email, some percentage of those people unsubscribe. It's like, well, you've already unsubscribed them all anyway, right? By the fact that you're not sending them any email.
Good point.
You've unsubscribed everybody, whether they wanted to or not, right? So, yeah, it's a common story because I don't know if it's because they just don't know what to do. In a lot of cases, yeah, we have the email addresses. Now what do we do, right? And or they're just lazy, one or the other. But the best part of it is automation fixes both of those things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's a big thing, because in the insurance space, we kind of had a brief conversation off camera about, sort of the logistics of the industry and, the shelf life of an insurance customer. It really depends on, honestly, your ability to communicate with them. I mean, we're in a very price conscientious type of space. There's a lot of big box companies, the Allstates and the Geicos, the State Farms that, they're pushing a certain message that is very price driven, whereas the independent insurance agency like myself and my audience, we're trying to push a completely different message. We're trying to sell value and service and relationships and that type of thing. But one of the areas that we struggle with, because those big companies, Geico and Allstate and those companies, they have sophisticated automation, built into their processes and everything else. So that's something that we sort of are competing against, and where we sometimes fall short. And I know that I have plenty of times is lack of communication. People don't necessarily leave you for price because their price went up. They leave you because their price went up and you never communicated with them. You never reached out to them. And that is a big problem or a big challenge that is in our industry, where we just, you get to a certain point where you have a book of business and there are, say, 600, 700, 800 households in your book of business, and you're a team of 2 or 3. That is a big thing, a big undertaking to service that book of business. And automation can help a lot of people in that way, where you can get these touch points on your clients throughout the year automatically. And of course, a tool like ActiveCampaign or even Infusionsoft, AndroPoint, any of these tools will make that so much easier. So with that being the case, what would you say? You meet with a lot of people, you talk to a lot of people. What would you say is something outside of just people simply not using the tool? What are some of the mistakes, or maybe the biggest mistake, that you run into as as someone who consults people in this space?
Yeah, not using the tool is this thing. Not having a plan, number one. Thinking it's too complicated, number 3. But I want to loop back to something you said just a minute ago, and this is the 4th mistake everyone makes. People don't know there's a lower price unless they're looking for it, right? So you said, before, you may have a customer that stays with you for 7 years, right? And they're not shopping around unless they're unhappy, right? I used to lead a lot of teams back in the corporate world, and it was like people join a company and they leave a manager, right? So they don't know there's a better job out there unless they're looking for a better job out there, right? So my job as a manager is to make sure that you aren't looking for a better job because you're so happy where you are, right?
No doubt.
So same thing with the insurance business, right? I'm guessing that people don't advertise insurance prices everywhere. Like I'm not going to walk down the street and see a $2.99 for life insurance billboard,
Correct.
right?
Right.
So I don't know as a customer, I don't know there's a cheaper price unless I'm unhappy and I go looking, right? So the fourth thing that people never do is nurture their customer base, right? So I'm assuming that a lot of these insurance agents will sign somebody up for an annual policy and then that's the last time they ever talk to them again, right?
Yeah,
So
very, very much so. Yeah.
Now, like obviously I don't want to hear from my insurance agent every other day,
Right.
but it would be nice to know what the changes are in the industry, or or hear stories of other people who may have had a disaster, but that was averted by the fact that they had insurance, for example, right?
Sure.
So, or just the fact that I'm checking in with you. If I'm your agent, hey, Chris, we haven't talked for a few months. I just want to make sure everything's going okay. Anything changed in your circumstances? If you have any questions about, your policy, or questions about this latest change to the legislation, etc., hey, give me a call, right? Oh yeah, that's a proactive insurance agent right there, right? That you're nurturing me as a customer. So if you don't have those nurture points, those touch points in your business, yeah, I'm just, as a customer, I'm just going to feel like I'm a dairy cow, and you're just milking me, and every year the machine amps up a few notches, right? So nurturing your customers is important, and that's what builds relationships in the offline world. If in the online world, if you saw that person out at the supermarket or whatever, you'd stop and say, hey, Chris, how you doing? Just how's things going? Oh yeah, good. You would have that little kind of normal human touch point conversation. But people think because everything's online that you don't have to do that anymore, and that's just simply not the case.
Sure, that's a good point, because the process of nurturing a client is very difficult. It's very, very difficult. I mean, I've been in the insurance space for 12 years. My agency is inside of a wealth management firm, and I see it from both sides. I see it on my end dealing with insurance customers and prospects, and I see it on the financial side where somebody comes to us with $20 million to invest. What is going to separate us from the other advisor down the road? And one of the things that we preach as being independent advisors or agents is the customer service point, which obviously can be a huge differentiating factor, in any business really. But I almost feel like as an agency owner or as an agent, we kind of oversell that sometimes. We use that as a bullet point in our pitch. And then once the person is in the door, we mean well, we want to nurture that client, but the reality is we need more transactions to happen. We need to get more premium on the books. And it's almost like, all right, we'll worry about that later. Let's just get them in the door and we'll worry about, and then of course, later never actually happens. And then 12 months later, when their policy renews, they get a renewal letter and their rate went up by $300 or $400, and you haven't talked to them in 12 months. So I guess if there's one thing that I could take from this, and why an insurance agency would want to automate some of these things is the nurturing piece. I mean, it's great, obviously, to use automation to get people in the door. I think you could buy traffic a number of different ways. You could buy leads. You can literally buy leads. So I don't know that the trouble is necessarily getting people in the funnel as much as it is once they're in and they're a client or a customer. How are you going to maintain that relationship? And that's obviously a big deal.
Precisely right. And the thing that I love the best about marketing automation that most people overlook is the fact that if I'm the business owner, if I'm the insurance agent, I can get the system to automate me, right? It's not just automating all the emails that goes out to my customers and my clients. It's also automating all the notifications that come to me, right?
That's a great point.
So,
that's a great point.
I can, if it's 2 months before your policy expires, right? I can come in the morning and all of a sudden, pop, 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 pop. Hey, Barry, these 3 people's policies expire next month. So I'm like, oh, I might review their customer profile. Then I might see what the new policy rates are going to be. And then I might proactively come up with a couple options. If it is going to go up by $300, right? I might just go, Okay, right. So what, Chris's policy is going to go up by $300 next month. So maybe I'll run out and find if there's another better policy we can put them on, or can we reduce some of the coverage to keep the price the same? Is there a competing policy we could use instead? And then instead of you as the customer getting ambushed a month later and my policy just went up by $300, I can get ahead of that game and I can say, hey, Chris, your policy is due to renew in 4 weeks. That current policy provider is going to, up your premium by $300 this year. So I've already gone out and I've had a look, and here's 3 different things we can do. You can just let the policy renew with the higher price. We can go to this policy, which is the same coverage, and it might be like $100 cheaper than that new price, or we can reduce some of the coverage and kind of keep the price the same. So love to have a chat to you about it. Here's my calendar. Let's book a 15-minute call, talk about it. How valued would you feel as a customer if that happened to you, right?
Yeah.
And you get the system to automate that, right? You just tell me that these 5 people's policies are expiring next month. Okay, let's have a look and let's be super proactive. And so that when that does come to renew, man, they're happy that they're like, shit, Barry's looking after me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
what other friggin' insurance agent is doing that? Nobody.
There's not. I know. The funny part is this industry really. I mean, like my doctor never calls me and says, "Hey, man, how are you feeling? Do you need to come in and like get a checkup?" Like this industry is one of the few industries that's expected to be proactive in that way. And my HVAC guy isn't calling me up saying, "Hey, how's your heater running?" And it's funny how that works. It's almost like it's a necessary part of our job, obviously, but I almost feel in some ways that we've set ourselves up for, disappointment by kind of overselling that bullet point, not delivering. And obviously automation, it would help solve that. So it really can save your behind if you're a small to mid-sized agency that just doesn't have the manpower to physically be proactive. And you bring up a good point with not just automating, the emails that go out to the nurture sequences that go out to the customer, but automating internal processes, or at least notifying, we could have an email go out to one of my customer service representatives that says, "Hey, so-and-so's policy," like you just explained earlier. So that is a concept that I think is very important for agencies to, I guess, recognize. And I'm going to kind of put you on the spot for a second, and you're a stud with this stuff, man. So I'm sure that you'll probably make it out of this unscathed. But so say we were going to actually set up an automation, right, that would do that. I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that would just be sort of a simple tagging and untagging type of process, right? We get a new client, we tag them with, I guess, an 11-month tag. It's a 12-month policy, so we want to notify either an internal person, 10 or 11 months prior. That's just simply applying a tag that would notify that person, correct?
That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, you could have a custom field attached to their profile, and that might be a bit technical for people listening. But in the database, there are a number of fields about you: your first name, your last name, your email address, your phone number, etc. Right? So you could have a custom field that says, policy date or something like that, and then in the system, you could just have an email queued up that goes out at policy date minus 30 days. Right. Mm-hmm. So policy date minus 30 days, an email is going to come to me or my admin assistant or whoever to let me know that Chris's insurance is up in 30 days from now. So let me reach out. So you could do it a number of ways. Yeah. But you could either tag them or have some sort of custom field and an automated alert in there based on the value of that custom field, if that makes sense. But one thing I wanted to loop back to when you said that is, a lot of people are small agencies, but what this kind of stuff does is it lets you be more nimble than the big guys, so Geico, you think Geico has people sitting around doing this? I guarantee that they don't, right?
Sure.
I guarantee they aren't picking up the phone and calling somebody 30 days before their policy goes out. So you can use your smallness as an advantage to being more nimble, right? Because you can have a more of a one-on-one relationship with your clients than those big companies can, right? So
no doubt,
use that as a lever to move a big rock, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's funny too, because, a lot of insurance consumers, they get hung up on the front end pitch and they'll go with a company because the rate is lower, and completely ignoring any of the other parts in the relationship. And because certain types of insurance, like personal lines insurance, for example, homeowners and car insurance, it's some of these companies are trying to commoditize that product line, and it's a battle that, as an independent agent, we fight every day to try to reverse their message. But what you said is a great point, because Geico is not calling people 30 days in advance. As a small independent agency, with automation, we have the ability to sort of outflank a company like that, who, they're spending a lot of money on the front end, on their front end message, but they're not doing it the right way on the back end. So we have the opportunity to, I guess, like I said, outflank even a company of that size, which is pretty awesome. I mean, especially considering that, again, we're talking about Active Campaign or some of these tools that are $50-$60 a month. To be able to compete with the big boys at such a low price point is actually pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's marketing. It's marketing jujitsu, right? Turn your perceived strength into your perceived weakness into a strength, right? That Geico's just got a big call center. Geico doesn't know who I am. They don't care who I am. They might have me in a database somewhere, but they don't know that I'm, married and I've got a kid on the way and we just moved into they're not going to know any of that stuff, right?
Exactly.
So you, as the small business owner, can have more of a relationship. Now, obviously, that takes time, but that's where you put the automation into place, right? You put the automation into place to trigger those time points that say, right, it's time to talk to Chris again, right?
Definitely. So one other thing that I wanted to kind of run by you is, we talk a lot about, automation and email marketing and those types of things. One of the things that I kind of think about sometimes is, email is one of those tools that I think we're like in a sweet spot right now with email. Like I don't feel as though maybe it's heading this way, but I don't feel as though it's saturated as other types of, marketing mediums like social media and paid ads and stuff like that. I think it still has, it's still sort of in that like early stage, anyway, as it relates to automation anyway. My fear is that, 5 years from now, email is going to be one of those things that, loses some of its luster, or, it's almost like I kind of look at like Twitter, for example, right? Twitter, you send out a tweet and 20 seconds later, it's out of the person's timeline. There's such a short shelf life to a tweet. As a whole, obviously, social media is important, but I'm kind of like concerned that like in a couple years, email will be like out the back door and we'll be scrambling to look for another way to communicate. One of the things that is starting to gain some steam in the insurance space is text message marketing. What are your thoughts on not just texting, but what do you think possibly, I know this is a crazy open-ended question, but what do you think is next? I mean, in the event that email sort of becomes like, people just, they kind of delete the email as soon as it comes in, almost like a push notification. People are starting to turn off push notifications. What if people start to ignore, email and automation the same way that they do, push notifications,
Well, I would answer that by saying I think my first email address was like a CompuServe email address. Do you remember that? Do you remember CompuServe back in the day?
No.
I'm dating myself now, but it was like, back pre AOL days, right? So,
ooh, dude,
yeah, I'm a nerd. I'm a total nerd. But I've had email. How long have you had an email address? Like 20 years, right? So I don't think it's going anywhere. If it was going to go anywhere, I would have. Email's like 30 years old. It would have gone somewhere by now.
True.
But I think messaging will certainly evolve. To answer your question about text messaging, as a consumer, I friggin' hate it. Like, don't text me. It's so intrusive, right? Ding.
It's so
What's that?
intrusive.
Oh, so
Yeah.
intrusive. And I just immediately give you douchebag points if you text me. And it's not important, right? If it's not super important, like, hey, this meeting's starting in 15 minutes. Oh, cool. Thank you, right? But if it's like, ding, hey, guess what? There's been, and if it's not some bullshit marketing message,
If it's like sales, right?
Yeah, you're just gonna piss me off, and I'm gonna going to really not like you very much. So just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something, right? If it's not adding value to my life, then I'm probably not going to have time for it. So if you need to find whatever the messaging channel is, you need to find a way to add value through that channel. And if you're not adding value through that channel, then maybe don't do it at all.
No doubt.
There's tons of social media channels. I'm only across a couple because as a consumer, I'm only interested in using a couple on, everyone's going ape shit about Snapchat at the moment. I'm like,
Right.
really?
Yeah.
And everyone should, you need to be on Snapchat. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't really need to be on Snapchat.
Yeah.
My life is full and rich without being on Snapchat, right? So I would say, look, what's best, don't worry about what the trend is. Worry about what's best for your customer. I think email is good in that you can still be top of mind without being intrusive. And if you think my marketing needs to be intrusive, you're probably not doing it right. And you're probably just being annoying.
Definitely.
And email something everyone's got in their pocket all the time. It goes with them everywhere. I think podcasting is a great medium as well, because I think the entire entertainment / distraction industry, which is really what entertainment is really going to an on-demand model. You look at Netflix, you look at the remote control on your TV, it's got the little button that says source equals TV. I had not been on source equals TV for at least 4 months, right? I just don't watch broadcast television anymore. It's either YouTube or it's Netflix or it's some on-demand kind of thing where I decide what I consume when I consume it, right? So now, are those guys worried about sending me text messages? Probably not. They're worried about creating good content that I want to watch, and I will seek it out, if you know what I mean, right? So this podcast for insurance agents, well, it's going to live in perpetuity forever somewhere. And,
sure. Hopefully.
An insurance agent worried about their marketing and their lead flow is going to seek it out at some point, and they're going to find it, and they're going to go, hey, yeah, this is a good idea. So I don't know. I don't really worry about what the next biggest thing is, because a lot, last year, what was the big last year? Pinterest or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's Pinterest now? Nowhere. Right?
Yeah.
There's a niche for it. There's a niche for every channel, obviously, but my wife's business, she runs like a health and wellness business, and she loves Instagram, right? She's all over Instagram all day long. And I'm like, well, what's that doing for your bottom line? Anything? Anything measurable? I just call it brand masturbation, right? She's just on there posting brand photos, and it's like,
right.
Does that translate? So I don't know. Like, I don't think you don't need to worry about what the next spec. If everyone's clamoring about it, it's probably too late anyway.
Exactly.
How about you just worry about how can I add value to my customers, and don't worry about it, whether it's on Snapchat or Twitter or Instagram's. Like, Instagram's blowing up at the minute for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah. So just worry about adding value first.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. There's a guy that I followed for a while, super nice guy. His name is John Saddington. And he said it best one time. He's like, everybody wants to be all over the place. He's like, really, the best thing that you can do when it comes to social media is to just pick one channel and just crush it. Like, pick one and just kill it, man. Like, go after it, And I think that's a mistake or a trap that we fall into, like you're talking about with Snapchat. Is like, we all have like shiny object syndrome, where we see like the next cool app, and all of a sudden that we're watering down our message and we're watering down our brand to the point where it's almost defeating the purpose of us being on social media to begin with,
And you're doing so many things, you don't doing anything well. So why bother?
Exactly.
But I would say to that, I can kind of understand the ethos of that, be everywhere philosophy. But I would call a little bit of bullshit on that, in that you don't want to be everywhere. You want to be in front of your customers, or in front of your best leads, right? So if your best leads in the insurance business, do you think your best leads are on Snapchat? Probably not, right?
No, definitely not.
So they're probably on LinkedIn, or, everyone's on Facebook. So I would pick Facebook and LinkedIn, and I would worry about how I can add value on those platforms, right?
Exactly.
Worry about what some 20-year-olds doing on Snapchat.
Yeah, no doubt. So yeah, so I guess we're kind of like getting towards the end. I know that you're a busy guy, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I do have another question or two for you.
Sure.
You know, you're obviously out there in the automation and marketing space, and you know, a well-respected guy out there. If you know, we had to tell the audience here, you know, obviously they're going to follow you at theactivemarketer.com. They're going to check out the podcast, you know, at theactivemarketer.com. But if there's, you know, maybe like one or two other people who are just crushing it right now, maybe in your space or who you respect, who are some other folks out there that, you know, could pose as, you know, mentors or people that we can all learn from as it relates to, you know, marketing automation?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Russell Brunson. I don't know if you know Russell, but
Yeah.
he's
I
a
got,
killer.
got this right here. I just got this in the mail. Actually,
Yeah.
it's funny, man.
Nice.
He got me hooked into his funnel already. I know what he's doing to me, but I just let him
Yeah.
do it. You know? I let him
Yeah,
do
you're
it.
like, I want to know how this works.
I want to know how it works, man. Let me hack your funnel, dude.
Take me on the journey, right? I've met Russell a couple of times, and I spent a week out in Boise with him and the team building out some funnels. But he's really good, and a lot of his stuff is for offline businesses as well. You know, he talks about a lot of his kind of his champion customers of his that he holds up, like Drew Canoli and all these guys that sell physical products, right? They sell, you know, supplements, or they sell like this guy that sells like gun accessories and trailer welling and stuff. So it's not all digital products. It's real. There's some real world, you know, physical products there as well. So he's good to follow. As you said, that book's a pretty good place to start. And if you're a super funnel geek, Todd Brown is also a really clever dude. Good to follow.
Okay, cool. Well. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm really trying to, like I said in the beginning, I want to shift the way that these agencies think, and I almost want them to look at it as a sales funnel. You know, I don't know if the average person would really understand the flow of that, but like I said earlier, you know, it's like we have a physical funnel and a digital funnel. How can we push traffic through both of those? I mean, we need to recognize both funnels. But yeah, Russell Brunson, man, it's funny. It's like sometimes I listen to some of his videos and stuff, and then like 20 minutes have gone by, and I haven't swallowed, or I didn't blink my eyes. Like I'm just like, because he's just so like, he's so engaging, you know. It's just funny to it's funny to see him do his thing, man. But he's a beast for sure. So
and I would say this, like, you know, one of the things Russell teaches and we did when we were out there is that a physical business like insurance, right? You have a funnel. You might not know what it is because you've never taken the time to think it through. But if you have customers coming through the door and you're signing up customers, you have a funnel. You just may not know what it is. You have a working funnel that's bringing you customers somehow. How can we just take that and then replicate that in the online environment, right? And then if you want to layer the marketing automation on top of that, marketing automation when done right, it can highlight your best leads. If you want to go back to that networking event metaphor for a second. If you walked into a networking event and there's 100 people in that room, maybe 5 of them need an insurance policy.
Right.
Wouldn't it be nice if there was a big spotlight in the ceiling that went, these 5 people, and I wouldn't have to talk to the other 95, right? So
exactly.
And that's what a sales funnel and marketing automation can do for you. It highlights those people who are most receptive to what you're selling and what they need.
Yeah, no doubt, man. The other thing that sort of interests me when I just kind of glance through the book and have seen some of the videos and training and stuff like that is also where I think insurance agencies could sort of borrow from or learn from is, you know, like he basically said, you know, amateurs focus on the front end of the funnel and not the back end of the funnel. I guess meaning, you know, the big boys are spending money to acquire customers, you know, and I think his model or some of his teachings are, you know, how can you sort of structure your business where, you know, you can afford to spend a little bit of money to make a little bit of money, you know. And I think that's something that as an insurance agency owner, you know, a lot of our business comes from, you know, word of mouth referrals and a lot of offline stuff. You know, we have lenders and realtors that send us leads and referrals, and, you know, we're in a position where a lot of us don't spend a whole lot of money to get any business, you know, and not that we're going to actually just hand people money to come get a quote. That's obviously illegal, but that's one of the interesting things about Russell, you know.
But here's what I bet you nobody's doing either: is you have these word of mouth referrals and real estate agents, etc. Are you nurturing them in an automated way, right? Are you nurturing those touch points with, hey, this realtor here, I haven't talked to him in 2 months. Bing, bing. All right, let's pick up the phone and talk to Chris, right? What's happening? Hey, Chris, what's happening in your real estate business, right? I'm reaching out to you in an automated fashion, being the reminder that I've gotten in the email. So, are you nurturing your lead flows, even if you might think it's all offline? It really isn't. Like, you can translate anything to online almost.
Yeah, it's a great point. So sort of why, because we're talking about this, I kind of give away a little bit of the secret here, but something that I'm working on at Advisor Evolved, my company is, I sort of recognized that a while ago. And I said, a big part of an insurance agency's ability to generate new business is their COI relationships, lenders and realtors and CPAs. So what I'm trying to do is, it's kind of in the works right now, very early stages of the sort of the product, but sort of a cool concept that I think is going to differentiate us a little bit, where we're trying to build out almost like a social network, not like a Facebook or anything like that, but something that is a plug into the back of the agency owner's website, where they could, have a little, like a login where like their lenders and realtors would go back there, and there would be like a directory almost, where, you could go to your clients and say, hey, we have a preferred relationship with, so-and-so who's a realtor, and kind of, scratch their back if they're going to scratch yours, kind of thing. But I'm really hoping that can work out. There's a lot of moving parts to it. And, obviously once it's built out, I have to teach people actually how to use it and make the most of it. But yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, that's a good point. People think about nurturing clients, but not necessarily nurturing other people that are bringing them business, which would be, their centers of influence. I mean, that's a huge, huge thing. And again, it goes back to, automation. It solves all problems in the world, man.
Almost.
Man. Well, hey, we're coming up on an hour, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I greatly appreciate you coming on. I've kind of plugged it a couple times already, but where are some places online that people can link up with Barry Moore? You're a busy guy, so I'm going to put it out there now, folks. If you message him or something, he might not get back to you right away, but that's okay. The dude's got stuff going on. But now, where can
the
people
automation
find you?
will, though, for sure.
The automation will do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably the best place to start is the podcast. There's I've interviewed lots of great marketers on there, both online businesses and offline businesses. So have a look through the back catalog, and there's a couple there from John Logar, who's a pretty clever dude for offline businesses, and Jay Cower, who run an offline business as well, and putting automation in there. So the Active Marketer podcast is a great place to start, and then everything else, just head over to the website.
Awesome, man. Well, for those that sort of maybe just came on the podcast, this is episode 3 of the Digital Advisor, brought to you by Advisor Evolved. We do websites and marketing consulting for independent insurance agents. So you can check Barry out at theactivemarketer.com. You can check me out at advisorevolve.com/podcast if you want to check out this episode and any other episodes we have. And Barry, man, thank you so much for taking time out. You got up early. Hopefully you didn't get up early just for this, but I'm not a morning person, so I got to give you some props here, man. You got up early to do this.
I'm all about getting up early and knocking it out, brother.
There you go, man.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, Chris.
No doubt, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, brother. See you.
All right. Take care, guys.